Thank you, sir. Welcome on our snowy March evening. We're going to start with the invocation, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would, please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and all the blessings you have given us. We thank you for providing us the opportunity to serve the citizens of Elkins. We ask that you guide us in our decision-making as we strive to help our community grow and we look at our budget tonight. We also ask that you watch over and guide our country's leaders. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. I will now call the special call council meeting to order and ask our clerk to take roll, please.
Councilor Bras Freganara. Here. Councilor Chenoweth.
Here.
Councilor Kwanzo.
Present.
Councilor Griggs.
Here.
Councilor Guy.
Present.
Councilor Hinchman.
Here.
Councilor Lowther is absent. Councilor Parker.
Here.
Councilor Severino.
Here.
Councilor Vest.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving down to the minutes, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the March 2nd, 2023 meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any comments or discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Is there anyone here for public comment tonight? No public comment. Okay, we'll move on down to new business. And it's Resolution 1621, Sanitation Budget Revision Number 1 for fiscal year 23. And I'll turn it over to our treasurer.
Okay, I'll take this one in coordination with the operations manager. We're moving $9,000 in revenues from special pickups and miscellaneous revenues to interest earned, reimbursements, and refunds and rebates. $9,000 just moving internally through the revenue stream. And then on the expenditures, we're taking $34,745 out of contracted services and moving it, excuse me, to salary and wages, FICA expense, group insurance, retirement, professional services, bank charges, and computer software into those line items. And those basically would cover some of operations wages. Professional services would be any legal expense. Bank charges are the direct deposit fees that were charged from our payroll account, and the computer software is the portion of our Encode software for the sanitation budget.
A couple questions just to clarify this for me. We're going to be shifting money to salary and wages, right?
Yeah, just to cover it for this
Okay.
fiscal year.
Do we have any idea? I mean, is that, are we shifting money to cover overtime, or was this that we budgeted short in the first place?
Budgeted short, this doesn't cover overtime. This is just the straight hourly wages
Okay.
and salary. Mhm.
And then, under computer software, do we know what that is? I mean, we're looking
It's-
at $9,000.
It's the Encode software, sanitation's portion of the software that we use.
Okay.
Okay. Mhm. It runs with, it's close to $40,000 now annually for maintenance, the licensing, and it's split between all funds because it's all budgeted. Yeah, for the use of that. Yes, sir. It's not cheap.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 1621.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any other comments or discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Resolution 1622, General Fund Budget Revision Number 7 for fiscal year 23.
I can handle this one, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
This is for the street department. We are transferring $8,500. We're going to transfer that out of utilities and move it to maintenance of buildings and grounds in the exact amount of $8,500. This is for the fence and gate installation around the recycling area behind the street department garage to shore that area up and make it more secure. The bid is also, should also be attached in your packet. It was $8,499. So that money is to take care of that project.
Thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion to accept, please. We have a motion. Any comments or discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Resolution 1623, fiscal year 2024 sanitation budget.
All right, so up on the screen, you have the projected revenues for sanitation in the amount of $1,564,505. And then, so this first department under the expenditures is the actual sanitation department. So with that, we have wages, a little over $337,000, FICA expense, group health insurance, retirement, overtime, telephone, utilities, travel, maintenance of buildings and grounds, maintenance of equipment, maintenance of autos and trucks, maintenance of the roll-offs, buildings, equipments, and rents, advertising and any legal publications, training and education, dues and subscriptions, contracted services in the amount of $610,000 is the amount we pay Tiger Valley Transfer, supplies and materials, automotive supplies, and that's generally fuel, gas, and diesel fuel, automotive supplies for the roll-off, uniforms, charges by other funds, and that amount of $70,500 will not be as much this coming year. And I know I have it budgeted as $70,500. That's what it was prior to getting the indirect costs. So there'll be some savings for sanitation in that. Capital outlay buildings is $70,000. Capital outlay equipment, $100,100. Other interest and penalties of $3,000. And generally, that's interest on any vehicles or loans that we have. So for that department, it's $1,435,700.
Tracy,
Yes, sir.
on contracted services, is that our tipping fees or transfer fees?
Yes, it
Is that
is.
what that is?
Yes.
I thought so.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then we go down, oops, there we go, to utility billings portion of it, 25% of their wages and supplies are budgeted in this line item. So this is for 2 employees, 25% for salary and wages, FICA, group health insurance, retirement, overtime, supplies and materials is at $28,355. Any questions on that?
Yeah, on the capital outlay of building, is this going to be rented for another year, or is this projected for the new building we're building for sanitation?
I believe that's for potentially for what the new sanitation garage is going to be, yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so any questions on the utility billing department? Okay, we'll move down to the admin in general. Salary and wages at $36,700, FICA expense at $1,800, the group health insurance, retirement, overtime, postage is for the mailings of the utility, their portion of the utility bills, professional services, insurance and bonds is your workers' comp and the general liability insurance. We haven't received what that amount will be, but I've been told to estimate 3 to 4% of an increase. And now that I think we'll have a better idea that now that we're separating out policies for water, sewer, parks, and the general fund. So once I get all of those broken down, we'll have a better idea of what each fund's really paying for. Contracted services, $2,000. The bank charges, once again, that's the direct deposit fees. Supplies and material, computer software, and then the sanitation garage construction in progress. We just have $1,000 in there. So I will say that sanitation generally has more revenues than they do expenditures. They are a very solid fund at this point in time. Any questions regarding the sanitation budget, projected budget, I should
Is
say?
the computer and software, is that for new equipment?
No, that's in code software. That's the,
For their-
part of that, and it can be for like, any antivirus softwares, licensing, those types of things that come with the regular computers as well. That's separate from the other one. Mhm.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept Resolution 1623, the fiscal year 2024 sanitation budget.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any comments or discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Resolution 1624, fiscal year 2024 landfill budget.
All right. For the landfill, we're budgeting $6,500 in revenues. That's basically interest earned on the cash at hand. Once again, as you all will recall, we have not had any income in that fund since the closure of the landfill. So eventually, the sanitation fund will have to take that over. But right now, the $6,500 is what we're budgeting for based on the interest on that cash account. And then the expenditures, utilities, professional services, the insurance and bonds is probably your biggest one right now. And any contracted services, the $850 is, Mike, you want to touch base on that again?
That is the contract we entered into with Sam Muncy, the engineer, to help us with the permit review, renewal, and modification to the sampling schedule.
So this is a pretty easy one, unless anybody has any questions. Okay.
If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 1624, fiscal year 2024 landfill budget.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any comments or discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Resolution 1625, fiscal year 2024 coal severance budget.
All right, so in the coal severance budget, you have an unencumbered fund balance I'm projecting to be $150,000 at the end of this year. Coal severance tax is budgeted at $25,000, and the interest earned on that account or those funds is $2,000 for a total budget of $177,000 in revenues. And the expenditures, we will put in City Hall contingency and then use it if need be for those items, or we've used it for the police in the past as well. Any questions regarding that one?
That one is pretty straightforward, so I'll entertain a motion for Resolution 1625, fiscal year 2024 coal severance budget.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any comments or discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Resolution 1626, fiscal year 2024 fire department budget.
All right, so in conjunction with Chief Himes, we're projecting revenues to come in at $981,104. That does not include any carryover amount that they may have. And then their expenditures, you'll see salary and wages for the full-time employees, and then the volunteer wages, FICA expense, group health insurance, retirement. The pensions paid is for the old pension plan. We anticipate, based on how the market's doing, that we may not have to contribute into that anymore, but for safe, just to be safe, we're going to budget $5,000 in there. The overtime, telephone, printing, utilities, travel, maintenance of building and grounds, maintenance of equipment, maintenance of auto and trucks, postage, and this is for their fire fee billing for in-city and first due fire fees, training and education, dues and subscriptions, professional services, insurance and bonds, that's workers' comp, fleet insurance and general liability insurance, court cost and damages, contracted services, bank charges, supplies and materials, automobile supplies, uniforms, capital outlay buildings, capital outlay equipment. And I believe the equipment is for the new fire truck whenever it decides to show up.
The one we're currently paying for and the new one when it does decide to make an appearance.
And that's that. Does anybody have any questions regarding the fire budget?
Could you explain what professional services would be for?
Say that, well, I'm sorry.
Professional services?
That could be any legal fees, when the city attorney is working on something for the fire department, which she is currently.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I had a question on the very first line of salary and wages. On, unless I'm reading it wrong, in the version that I have in the packet, it has 321,404.
Yeah, that's what,
I don't know.
I have that same version.
Do you?
yeah.
And
I
the
do too.
revenues, I think, were $6,000 more for the fire.
I bet before we adjusted, I'm sorry, that would be my fault. For
So-
providing the wrong version, I'm sorry. What you have in front of you here would be the correct version.
Okay.
Yep, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to make sure we were voting on the right.
Yes, that's my fault.
Can you go back to the revenues page?
Sure.
What did you say that the revenue was?
The revenue is 981,104.
I'm not seeing where that's listed. Do you see that?
Well, it's, that
Yep.
might
the wrong
have to be
page.
adjusted as well.
Oh, I see, gotcha. Sorry.
So
Yeah,
the-
it's the one that's up there.
Yeah.
The fire protection fees include in-city and first-due fire fees of $944,218. The fire fee penalties are estimated at $25,501. The interest earned is $10,860. That would be interest earned on their checking account, cash account. And refunds and rebates, the $525 is their portion of the P card and any fuel rebates that they would get back from the state.
How does that work with the P card? Is that, on the rebate, if you get any rebates from your P card, it goes back to the department?
It goes back to the funds.
Okay.
Mhm.
To
Yeah,
the
we
funds
keep
as a whole or
The
general
fund as a whole. Yeah, we manually, well, when we do our accounts payable, it's broken out by fund, and then we do a spreadsheet for what the costs are for, now that we're using the fuel fleet card as well, what the funds spend in supplies and materials, and then also for the fleet, the fuel fleet card. And then once we get the quarterly rebate check back, then it's divvied up by percentage spent.
I see.
Any other questions?
And once again, I apologize for having.
Oh, you're fine.
on there.
If none, then I'll entertain a motion to accept Resolution 1626, fiscal year 2024 Fire Department budget.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any comments or discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. G, presentation of fiscal year 2024 general fund budget.
A little slow coming up. So I sent this, you should have the letter that was sent. So basically, I'm anticipating a carryover amount of $384,359. The amount is included in the budget, and it is not budgeted for as contingencies. It's what we need to make a balanced budget. If we happen to fall short at the end of the fiscal year, we will need to find the difference next fiscal year as it progresses. And if we don't have those excess revenues, then we may have to take something out of the financial stabilization account. But normally, we've had a carryover anywhere from 150,000 to a few years ago of $1 million, I think, when we first started in with the sales tax revenues, budgeting very conservatively. But the way things look right now, as long as we don't have any major expenditures, we'll have that carryover amount. So outside contributions, I'm recommending they stay the same as they were last year, except for the Cump House. And I'll dive a little deeper into why not the Cump House. Health insurance premiums are increasing, has been confirmed at 9.7%, and council had approved to absorb that increase. And I've listed the debt payments for operations, streets, custodial, police, the Phil Gaynor Community Center, and the Baxter Street Garage, which is the portion of the street and central garage department. So the total of those payments, annual payments, are $259,671.78, and they're accounted for in each of those departments. So some of the things the administrative officers considered creating this budget were the indirect cost. We found out after speaking with the auditor was being reduced by $135,935, basically due to the structure of the water and sewer department change. Pay increases for hourly employees based on the compensation review, the step and grade plan. The estimated general liability property insurance increasing by 3 to 4%, as I said earlier. Workers' comp premiums will increase due to wage increases and if there were any new claims in fiscal year 23. We generally will know what that is come August when they do their annual audit and then make the adjustments from then. Cost of materials, we're still seeing increases in those. Fuel costs are still fluctuating, and they do continue to impact all departments. Hotel taxes are finally, revenues are finally rebounding. This year, we're increasing it by $35,100. Nothing is budgeted for in the demolition department, as we are awarded the $300,000 grant. Human resource position has been budgeted for. County taxes are budgeted for $1,188,089, an increase from last year of $93,682. And I will say we never see 100% of that, especially of the current budget, the current taxes. We don't see 100% of that. B&O taxes are budgeted for $1,410,000. That's an increase of $105,000. The Darden House and the Cump House utilities and lawn care are budgeted for $25,970. Due to these being city-owned properties, the Cump House previously received a contribution of $6,000 to cover those costs. And then we will have several capital projects in various stages that may require a new funding stream. There's grant opportunities being sought, and I'll discuss those later on as well, what those capital projects are. All right, let's see here. Maybe the computer helps. All right, so, while it's doing that. So, oh my, maybe we will. All right, does everybody have the indirect cost worksheet by any chance?
I do.
Or do you have it on your computer, 2024 indirect cost? Yeah, it's not allowing me to use it. So, there we go. Well, I'll read it to you since I can't get it to come up. So what our auditors determined was what wages should go into part of the indirect costs since all the funds are being separated out now. So we have the mayor's wages, we have my wages and fringe benefits, as well as 3 of the workers in my office with their wages and fringe benefits, human resources, that person plus the payroll coordinator. So all of that comes to a total of $344,356.90. And then they broke it down by the number of employees per fund to determine what each fund would be responsible for paying the general fund. So the fire fund is going to be paying $30,992.12 to the general fund. Sanitation will be paying $34,435.69. Sewer fund will be paying $37,910.85. The water fund will be paying $47,388.56. And the parks fund will be paying $4,741.21. This basically takes care of payroll, accounts payable, cash collections, and billing of all of the services for any of those departments. Anybody have any questions on that, how that was arrived?
All those wages are including insurance and.
Yes, fringe benefits and
Is that
everything,
total,
yes.
right, for each?
Mhm, yes. It includes overtime, FICA, retirement, yeah, health insurance. Mhm. Okay, anything else from that? All right. Let's go to the outside contributions. I believe I laid a sheet for you all there as well. Don't know why it's not staying up. But you all have your sheet, so.
I think you have to accept the license agreement on there, is why.
I don't have that on my screen. Oh, I have to,
Yeah.
let me try that again. I'm hitting, I'll try that. No. Yeah, there were several updates to this, and,
Yeah, no kidding.
yeah. Oh, I think the mayor was on to something. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, oh my gosh. Come on. Well, I'll just start. I won't touch it, how's that? So the Airport Authority, they have requested $25,000 for this budget year. That's a $6,000 increase from last year. I am recommending staying where we were last year, because if you may recall, each year we pay 50% of their insurances, which can be $10,000 to $12,000 a year. So I recommend we stay where we are with that.
Do we know why they requested more?
I don't unless,
Do you just finance them?
hang on,
What's that?
we can go in here and look.
Why they requested?
It just says the requested funds will be used for utility, maintenance, and general day-to-day operation that are necessary to provide a safe all-weather airport, enabling the community to take advantage of the aviation services.
I know I haven't heard from them for a while, so I don't know even how much money they have. Do you know that? Sorry, but just.
No, you're fine.
So for their current budget, it looks like their total income for this year would be $482,040. Aviation fuel sales, they have at a little over 207,000. City of Elkins funding, 19,000. The insurance allotment they show is 16,000. And I have ask that they put their insurance out for bid. Don't think they've been doing that for quite a while. The county commission gives them $40,000. It says total funding income outside of the fuel cells is $75,000 total. They have FAA CARES number 3. Potentially that could be a grant, that's $32,000. Interest, $50. Sales of $1,800. A West Virginia DMTF, the $37,500. Total miscellaneous income is $71,350. Hangar rent, they have at $61,920. Emerson Fairs Building, $37,500, and I'm not sure, is that the building 911 uses? So that's probably the rent that 911 pays,
I'm sorry, what was that amount?
$37,500. Total leases, $44,520, and this is their revenues. Then they has office rents at $22,092. Total rental income is $128,532. Let's see if I can find out. So as far as their expenditures, they're showing, I'm sure this is right. Aviation oil and equipment oil at $2,200. Payroll, expenses, taxes, and other at almost $117,000. Their audit of $4,500. Legal fee of $2,000. Just says accounting, $500. Repairs and maintenance, $7,500. Safety and security, $3,500. Small equipment, supplies, travel is $7,000. Utilities, electric is $14,385. Garbage is $1,600. Natural gas is $6,000. Sudden Link at $3,900. And water at $2,700. Total utility cost, $28,585. Web and email hosting, $500. Workers' comp, $3,000. Total expenditures of $412,540. And then they have an other expense of $69,500. I have no idea what that is. And then they have their annual audit report attached.
Who's the city's representative on the airport authority? Or representatives?
I don't think we have one.
I think that's right, yes.
What's that?
I don't think they've appointed anybody else.
Linda says it used to be Charlie Friddle.
Used to be Bob Woolwine at one
Bob
time. Now, I know
Woolwine.
Bob's still
Bob's
connected,
still
but I don't, he's not the city, but I think Larry
Larry
Wing is now.
But he's on the council, he's not on council.
Is there supposed to be a council member?
It's supposed to be a council person, I believe.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think.
I think there's a
thinking
council
just had
appointee,
to-
but
There's two, I believe there's two city appointees, two council, or pardon me, two commission appointees and one at-large appointee. There's not required
To
the
be a
council to
council.
sit on that board. Larry Wing and, I think Bob might actually, he's still on, I think it's Bob Wine still, and Larry Wing are the two city-appointed members of that, of the airport authority.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, Tracy.
You're welcome. Okay, any other questions about the airport? Okay, then we have animal control, $7,000. Recall, this is the money we give the county commission and can't get really a direct answer of what it's used for. We'll say it goes toward the humane officer. Any questions on that one? Okay, the Appalachian Forest Heritage, they are requesting $6,000, or $7,000, I'm sorry. It's a $1,000 increase from last year. The Art Center is requesting $5,000, which is the same as they have this current year. The Chamber of Commerce is requesting the same as well as last year, $6,000 for events, fireworks, well, just events and fireworks. They don't do the street machines any longer. Child Advocacy Center is requesting $5,000. That's a $2,000 increase. County Roads Transit is requesting $15,000. That's a $1,000 increase.
So philosophically, we just had we decided to just have what people had requested before across the board. Is that what was sort of decided holistically about this? Because I do have a concern with Country Roads Transit, because I know fuel costs have just skyrocketed. And I'm sure in the packets, they probably had justification for requesting an increase, perhaps. But I know verbally, in the presentation that we were given, that was mentioned as a real hardship on Country Roads Transit, and as the only source of public transportation, I sort of feel like that's a real need.
So I guess you all hash that out, what you all would like to do.
Is that what,
That's
is that what
this
we're
is-
doing today?
Yes, that's what you're doing right now.
Okay.
I think when she presented here at the council, that was her main concern, was gasoline prices. Am I correct on that? She mentioned that several times.
As I understand it, the clerk's making the recommendation that we just contribute what we contributed last year. I mean, that's what you're recommending.
Yes, that's what I'm recommending. And as Country Roads fuel has gone up, so has the city's fuel. And we just, the revenues, we just don't have this open pocket of money flowing. So, I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from, but cost.
Our asphalt hauler has a 17% surcharge on their fuel, and I'm assuming that still stands? Yeah, so we're paying increased prices for fuel as well, so we're seeing that.
Any more discussion on that one? Okay, Elkins Main Street, they're requesting $5,000 more, $25,000 for the year. And I believe Sutton had laid out a letter for you all. I don't know if there's any discussion about that or not, but just more informational purposes.
You all have in your email and in paper form in front of you an email from Scott Goddard where he just is updating council on where things stand currently. So that's just for your information as you consider their request.
Any questions about that?
I would like to express some concern. I'm glad to see that in the letter that hopefully a good candidate is, ready to start working. But I do have concerns about in the packets that Sutton sent around as well, in the ask, that there was a lot of conversation about the grants that will be applied for, and I hope we actually see that happen. I have been just sad to see that there has been little grant writing, and I have to say that I get input from folks all the time wondering what's happening with Main Street. And I hope that if we do agree to fund them again, that there will actually be something to show for it, that in a year from now, we'll be glad that we did this. Right now, I am a little concerned, and I do wish, and we've mentioned this before, they have $2,400 spent on rent, and I wish that they would just rent something out here in the city for free and save some money that way. And just in the language, include the city a little bit more in what happens. I know we have a member on the board of directors there, but there's been a lack of communication with Main Street, and I get concerned about the tight collaboration with the other agencies. I feel like the voice of downtown has sort of been lost, and when I look at the Vitality Group, the collaborative with the chamber, there's a lot of emphasis on county economic development. And one of the things that has been mentioned is if we get this position, it will be somebody working for the city. It's a position that we couldn't afford ourselves. And so I hope that will be the case, that the person will be focused on the Main Street footprint specifically, and that rather than tons and tons of collaboration, there's actually action and visible improvements to downtown this coming year.
Well, it's been several years ago since I was on that board, but Main Street is about downtown. It's not about county stuff, so I would just, I'll throw that out there. That, if there's a collaboration with doing things in the county, it really goes against what all I was aware of and known to be what Elkins Main Street was for.
As the board member, I guess I should respond now, since these comments have been offered. I think the Elkins Main Street Board is very aware of these concerns. I think they finally have gotten it. I won't say it didn't take them a while, but I think they've gotten it, and I think they understand that most right now, they've got a year for this thing to get up and fly. And I think the concerns that are raised are well-founded, and I think that we need to reiterate those with the board. But I would, knowing that my first allegiance, if you will, is to the city and to the well-being of the city, I would still ask for one more year, this year, that we're talking about funding right now. I think it's warranted.
Are we making a contribution to our town?
No.
'Cause that does seem to be an organization that I think does a lot for downtown Elkins and sort of fills the streets with activities. And I thought I saw something in here for Our Town, but I have so many papers, I can't find it at this point. But is it, so there's no contribution? Did they ask for money?
Our town?
Our Town?
Don't believe so.
I didn't see it.
I don't see it, Rob, I'm looking at it right now, unless it's coming on
Because it
something else.
hasn't been on before. We haven't funded that last year.
I know they came to finance and asked for a contribution of a few $1,000s to fund a couple activities that they were looking to do a year or two ago. I just wondered if that would be something that would be warranted.
If I recall,
Rob?
Rob, I think we funded $2,500 for the concert series last year.
Yeah,
Separate from the budget. but I had asked when Main Street was here, when we started this back in the early 2006, say, and all, you know, we worked really hard on getting Main Street established and then getting us certified and all, so I really hope it stays together, but I hadn't kept up with it on the board of directors for a couple years, but we had worked so hard on the board for these outside events and all, and so now they tell me that these outside events are being sponsored by our town and that the Main Street, the reason for Main Street is to do economic development, so we don't see that on a one-to-one basis like we used to see the things going on downtown on Third Street and all. I would encourage us to keep trying for another year or two, to give them a year to show us what they can do for the city.
I was just going to throw in, when it comes to economic development, recall that a year ago, last fall, there was access through the Main Street program to the consultant that came in and created that entrepreneurship survey, which I participated in the planning and heard some of the information about. It seemed really well done, and I believe it was the case that it resulted in the identification of at least a couple of businesses that were, you know, that through that process came forward. Main Street and other entities became aware of them and started the process towards them getting rolling in downtown. So that's one more tangible aspect of their economic development work that did seem like a very well designed program. That fed into that entrepreneurship event that we're having the second one of, I believe, this month, which also seemed to build a lot of energy around economic development downtown. So that did funnel in from Main Street. I'll just throw that out there.
I guess,
I have a question just about order. I want to ask this body to consider the possibility of bumping one of these contributions by a little bit. Is this the time to do it, or after we move this? Or will we be moving this tonight? I guess we won't. So this would be the time to discuss it. Okay. May I do that? Thank you. I just didn't want to get us off in the weeds. I have had reason to be working with the Child Advocacy Center fairly recently. I have their annual reports for the last 3 years. I am very, very acutely aware of the nature of their work and the successful interventions they've made on behalf of our children. Those successful interventions, at least in part, involve the work of both EPD and the Sheriff's Office in doing investigations, having successful prosecutions of people who abuse children, traumatized children. I would like to ask that we consider giving them their full asking this year, or at least another $1,000, because it will go a long way with that organization. And I firmly believe that those children have got to be our priority. So thank you for hearing me out, gang.
Chad, did you have something?
Yes. Going back to Main Street, I will disclose I do have a conflict. My wife is one of the executive officers. My only comment with regard to Main Street and then moving forward in the economic development realm is, what have they done in the past and what is their plan for the future? And can we, asking that, can we approve the budget but hold it until we actually get a plan from them? Who are they going to hire? What is their economic development background? How are we going to benefit from Main Street and this money when we haven't seen that in the past 5 years or whatever? So what's gonna change? Is my only comment. And can we approve the budget money and then hold it until we actually get that from them?
No, I think if we approve it, it's going to be their money, so.
I think the one question, kind of a follow-up to Councilman Griggs. I'm a little concerned about the email or the letter that we got from Mr. Goddard, wondering what if the county commission doesn't fund it? Are they going to be coming to the city then for some money?
Well, if the county doesn't fund it, then there's no Elkins Main Street. That's what I'd say, because the funding we give them is the funding we give them.
Right,
That's
I
it.
understand.
That's it. And, you know, I've always been a strong advocate for Elkins Main Street, but it's been faltering terribly. And I'm ashamed of it, really, to be honest about it. And I'm sad that it's not done its job and kept up. But, you know, I think people have kind of wandered in and out of Elkins Main Street, and when Dave Cutliff was a strong member there, it held its own, and it was doing really well. But I think that it's just kind of lost its way. And however, it doesn't mean that I don't still support it. I do. I think that it means a lot to have it for a downtown. But again, I think we should look at it for another year, and I think if it doesn't shake out, then I hope you guys next year say that's enough, you know? $20,000, I mean, is, you have other things on this list that are deserving as well, so.
If I could add to that, Marilyn, I kind of agree with a lot of your comments on there, I really do. But I think we gave Scott Goddard an awful lot of good feedback when he came to meet with us a while back at the committee meeting. But I also look at the fact that the bigger picture that we're part of the Ascend community now. So being part of the Ascend community means it's important for us to be in our town, a Main Street member. So I think you need to look at the impact of that if we do remove that status and how that's going to impact us going forward with the Ascend program. So those kind of go hand in hand.
I agree with you.
Right, so,
Yeah.
I agree, I think that we need to see results,
Yeah.
but I think everybody's kind of speaking the same language, that, you know, you'll give them another chance, but we absolutely have to see results this time, so.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's your guys' decision.
Yeah, no, I hear, yeah.
Okay, any more discussion about Main Street?
So,
Okay. The Health Department, they're asking for $5,000. That's a $1,000 increase from last year. Historic Landmarks Commission is asking.
Can we just stop at the health department a minute?
Sure.
Here's some money that we give to the health department. Judy, maybe you can help us here, but does $4,000 really do anything for the health department? I mean, it is one of the most vital departments that this city could have. However, you know, it's county run, and I know what is the city contributing to when it gives $4,000? I'd like to know what exactly that would help with.
Back in the early 2000s, again, that's when I was mayor, we were giving the health department $16,000. And it kind of dwindled down to 14 then as it got into 2010 and 15. But then in about 2018, the new sanitation engineer billed each of the Ramp Festival people that were cooking for the Ramp Festival that she had to test. She billed them $50. And that is within the guidelines of the West Virginia Health Department guidelines to do that. But it got one of our city council persons so upset that he cut the budget from 14 to 4. So the county commission has been very generous in keeping the health department funding, and we're doing well with that, but I've asked each year for that to be increased, and it hasn't been, but.
Is there in the packet did they turn in a packet, and wasn't, was there any language about what the reason for the increase might have been if they turned in a packet?
Says most of our funding, including grants and funding from the state of West Virginia, can only be used for specific services. We use funding from the city of Elkins to carry out needed services for residents that cannot be charged to these sources. It is also used to supplement programs such as family planning, which do not generate sufficient funds to pay for these services to residents. Funds will assist the agency to offer additional outreach projects in the community where several services will be offered to residents. In the past several months, the nurses have set up at special events in the city of Elkins to offer immunizations for adults, flu vaccine, and the COVID vaccine, blood pressure checks, Narcan distribution to help prevent overdoses in the community. We also offer low-cost immunizations to the city employees. These requested funds would help us to continue these events and services.
I mean, again, I'm going to say that the health department is one of the most important departments in this city. I mean, it is, I mean, through COVID, it was extremely important, extremely important, extremely important. And through, if you guys haven't had your shingles vaccination, it's free there. And you know how much that costs otherwise? It's a lot of money. So, I mean, I don't know that I'm advocating for much. I just want everybody to understand that I think it's an extremely important department, but if they can use $5,000, I think we should give them $5,000. It's not much, but it provides a lot of immunizations for children and for women and men alike, so it's important.
So if people want to change something, do they make how does this work?
Well, let me offer this to you, and if you all want to do something different, we can go through each one of these, and then I'm making notes here of who we're asking an increase for. And then I thought we'd come back to that unless you all want to address it right now.
No, that sounds good.
Is that okay? All right, any other questions regarding the health department? Okay, the
I would
historic
like to
landmarks.
just say about the health department that I concur with Marilyn, that it really has an extremely important role. I've been interacting with them as well, representing the task force in some layered conversation, if you will, and they have been open and smart about what they're doing. They have helped me understand more about the services that they're delivering for residents of the city. And yes, they're good.
Okay, moving on to the Historic Landmarks Commission. They are requesting $4,200. That's $200 more than last year. The Kump House has requested basically that the city take over the utilities, lawn keeping services there, since it's a city-owned building. So basically, I did not budget anything as a contribution if the city's going to be taking that over, and that'll be in the general fund budget as we go through. That I'll show you where that shows up. The library, $22,500 is the same as they've had the previous 3 years of the request. Randolph County Development Authority, $13,500, the same as the prior 3 years. The tree board is asking for $5,500. That's $300 more than last year.
Can we back up just to the,
We can.
I guess I got a bone to pick here. What's happening with the development authority that we're giving them that much money? And what do they do with their money? What are they asking for?
Or maybe that's where we get our excess money later.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Maybe that's where we get our excess money if we want to change things around. And that extra $300, is that for a chainsaw
Chainsaw?
for the tree board?
So looking at, okay, looking at the request, it says historically, funds allocated to the Randolph County Development Authority by the City of Elkins have gone into our general fund, or general revenue fund. They have assisted us with our overall mission of business, community, workforce development. During fiscal year 2023, our revenues are up due to the sale of the AHF Products Building in Beverly. While it looks as though we are flush with cash, all of the money is going towards the funding gap for the event center. We also have significant expenses remaining in the industrial park. Therefore, we are requesting the same amount of funding as in fiscal year 2024 that we received fiscal year 2023. We would propose the same situation in putting the funds in general operations to allow us the flexibility to use where the greatest needs exist. However, if the city would like us to earmark these funds for one particular project or the other, we would be happy to do that given the funding need that still exists for either project. We feel we provide a significant return on investment to the city of Elkins for $13,500 investment the city makes in the RCDA. We hope the city feels the same way and continues our allocation accordingly.
I will say, Marilyn, as one of our community partners, I mean, building the event center and taking the point on that's going to be a tremendous opportunity for the city alone. We also have a manufacturer that's looking to build in the industrial park, and the RCDA is taking point on that. So we are benefiting, in my opinion, from a revenue standpoint.
Okay. So I
They
wanted to hear.
are they're our economic development arm, I guess, of the city, so I mean.
Can we earmark that for the industrial park turning lane?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Can we earmark that money, that 13,500 for that road construction?
The only reason I wouldn't do that, Chris, is because they may have DOT money for that already. So they may already have that covered. So I don't want to lock it down if they already have it covered and it can be used somewhere else for
Well,
it.
they're not gonna have DOT money once they come into industrial park though, once they start to continue their road past the wastewater facility, right?
I think we can have that discussion with them though, yeah.
Okay, any other discussion about that one?
Thanks, Tracy.
You're welcome. Tree board, you want to talk about the increase, why you're requesting the increase?
The arborist is the arborist that's increased, we haven't.
Okay.
So that was my suggestion, is that we might want to separate those two, because it's difficult, I think, when you just see that the tree board's asking for more money. We're not asking for more money. But the arborist is asking for more money because of gas and basically.
So
I don't
when
know
you're
why.
saying separate it, what do you mean?
I mean, the tree board is the tree board, but the city arborist is a totally different, separate contract.
So you're saying put that in the general fund
But
budget?
it comes under the tree board. I would leave it right there.
Well,
Otherwise,
I don't know why,
we're-
I don't know why it has to come under the tree board, because the city has access to use that, the city arborist operations can use it anytime they want to, streets department can use it anytime they want to, it doesn't have to be just the tree board. So that's why I'm saying it. I just wanted to be clear that the tree board's not asking for an increase, it was the arborist that was asking for that. But I'm fine with what's
Yes,
over
right
here. I'm
Chris,
not-
do you know if Tom ever talks to the arborist about trees?
I think every once in a while when the tree board meets with Parks or with Tom over, and I think the arborist has met with
Oh, yeah, with Tom many times.
Tom.
Okay,
yeah.
I thought they did. I want to confirm
Yeah,
that. Thank you.
I was gonna say, I knew a few times when Marilyn had met with Tom, the arborist was there.
So, I mean, it had nothing to do with the tree board, it just was Tom has a separate relationship with him.
And that was to decide some of the trees that were going to be planted over in Glendale. Is that correct? Didn't he help with that as well?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That was a separate contract too, though, yeah. So anyhow, I'm just trying to clarify that for something you might want to think about next year to separate
How
that.
about this contractual services?
Yeah, maybe,
Under contractual
Yeah.
services.
Okay.
But
that's a
that's
good,
fine.
that's a good point.
Okay, then Parks and Recreation, we have been giving them a total of $305,000, I think it's $796, the last few years. And that, what we provide them and the outside contribution really depends on hotel, motel, or hotel tax. So as you know, right now, 50% goes to the depot center. The other 50%, council has said, will go to parks. So with that increase of $27,000 from the hotel tax this year, we're decreasing what we gave parks last year. So it just kind of all washes out, but the same amount is there, if that makes sense. Okay, so we'll go back to, we had a request for child advocacy to increase theirs from basically where I had left everything the same as last year, as well as the health department.
So what do we do?
You all need to decide.
Could
what you
could
would
that
like
be
to do.
offset with the additional, the extra $5,000 that Main Street is asking for? There's $5,000 there. Main Street wants to increase by 5,000. Can we spread that between the other two? And
Well, I left everybody at the same as last year, or is this current year that we're in. So they, even though they're asking for those increases, I haven't given anybody an increase, if that makes sense.
So we're talking right now about the child advocacy?
And the health
And
department.
the health
And the
department.
I'm saying that they've asked for an additional $5,000, so we don't give Main Street the $5,000 and we give it to the other two.
But we didn't budget
Yeah,
at
we-
5,000.
We didn't give it to
increase.
them, period.
Yeah, I mean, we can
It hasn't
increase
been
the budget to
recommended.
do so if you all, you just need to come up with a number that you would like to do so, and
I'd like to ask the chief, have you ever had any relationship with the child advocacy center?
Absolutely. If there's an entity on that paper that I would say is deserving of funding as it relates to us, it's the Child Advocacy Center. That is a critical function in prosecution and investigation of crimes against children for us. It's an essential function, and anything you guys can do to help them, I would completely be in favor of.
I imagine their numbers, their case numbers have, post-COVID
Yes.
have gone, skyrocketed. And, we have the whole, task group working on elements that sort of crosses into this, and it seems like that's one of our areas of concern. So,
I'd like to give the Child Advocacy Center their full request of $2,000.
I mean,
Or
request of
a
5,000.
total of 5,000, an increase of 2,000.
second, are we doing motions?
I guess,
Or what are we doing?
if we increase, where does the money come from? If we're increasing,
That was my point.
well, that's a good question. We can either increase our unassigned fund balance to make that balance, or we'll have to take it out of another general fund line item.
Well, that was my point with the whole Main Street.
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
Yeah.
So Main Street this year gets 20,000. They've asked for 25, but the way I have everything budgeted right
Oh,
now,
okay, I'm not
yeah,
reading
is
that
for
right.
the same.
Okay, I
amount.
see, I wasn't reading that right.
It's
I
okay.
get it,
It's
I
all
get
right.
it.
So I don't know that you need a motion since it's kind of a working thing. I can update the budget if you
Okay.
want to do that, and
Yeah,
then
whatever.
Thursday night's meeting, we would have that. So is everybody okay with upping that 2,000 to give them 5,000? Okay, what about the health department?
I would make a motion to give them what they've asked for too, 5,000?
So the increase of $1,000 for them.
Yes.
Any discussion?
because my general thought is that all these organizations are important, and I guess anyone, all of them could be advocated for. It just seems to me that our budget's tight and, you know, our costs are going up as well. So I don't know if I'd be in favor of really giving any more than what we did last year, personally.
I couldn't agree with you more, Rob. It's, the only thing that I think that, when, it's difficult, because, you know, you know, I mean, in the beginning, you know, when I came on council, there was probably 2 pages of this. So it's been whittled down quite a bit. Am I right, Tracy, about that? But I do think that some things make the city better, you know, and so just like we're giving the Randolph County Authority, I mean, you know, they're giving them a lot of money. And so therefore, you know, these things are getting minuscule amounts of money, but they do make Elkins a better place to live.
Okay,
And
so,
Well, can I
Yeah, we-
respond to that before?
Sorry.
And I don't disagree with you. My thought is, I guess instead of going outside contributions to come up with the money, something, maybe we can identify
Adjust.
something that within it, outside contributions that can be reduced to allocate the money to something more important.
so you're looking for, what, an additional $3,000?
Yes.
So, cut a couple that have been questionable, cut $1,000 from each one of them, or $1,500 for each one of them.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, so Main Street, I mean, they're asking for 20, maybe we give them 18.
18.5.
And Airport Authority.
Chris, excuse me, you're recommending cutting Main Street to 15.5? Do I
No.
understand that correctly?
No.
18.5.
No.
Okay, what you need to understand is that for every dollar they lose from the city, they lose an equal amount from the county.
Well, I think if everybody remembers from last year, everybody remembers my feelings on the whole thing completely. I said, if everybody remembers from last year, everybody remembers that I wanted just to get rid of it completely. So, I mean, I think that we could take a little out of the airport. I think we could take a little bit out of the Development Authority. And I think we could take a little bit out of Main Street.
Okay,
I would say, you know, if we can manage this budget that's been presented to us, I hope that we think of these agencies as not outside agencies. They're part of the running of the city residents, and are providing services for them. I hope that we can keep Main Street at what it is for this year, because they depend on that in order to qualify to keep the Main Street program at a certain level. Let's try this year, maybe increase the children's advocacy, even give the health department $500 more, but just don't go backwards. We need to go forwards.
Money's gonna come from somewhere though.
I can go with that.
What entities are in the Darden House?
What?
Are any of these entities? No.
okay, something to think about. Right now, we're $384,000 in the hole. We have to get money from someplace else to add back to our revenues to bring it back up. Last year, we were $270,000 in the hole. We had to get rollover money or someplace else to balance the budget. This year, we're right having $384,000 less in revenue. We got more expenses, plain and simple.
Now, and I will follow that up.
Okay.
We may very well come in, or come out with more carryover amount. It's just hard to predict of what's going to happen the last 3 to 4 months of the fiscal year. This last year and this year, we've budgeted our sales tax revenues $200,000 more than what we did 2 years ago. I feel comfortable that we'll be able to get the 1.4 million, probably a little more, but my fear is if I budget at 100%, I don't feel comfortable budgeting at 100% of what I think everything will come in at, because if it doesn't, then it's gonna get, very hard to figure out where to cut the budgets. So,
Right, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. You need to be conservative on what you're doing. You've done a very good job. Thank you.
thank you. So if I heard Counselor Guy correct, she's saying 500 for the health department, the 2,000 for the advocacy
Yes.
center?
I guess the question is, where does that come from?
I mean, as, I'm not the chair anymore of the tree board, and, but, and I don't want you guys to think that we don't need the money, but I'm willing to cut our budget back $1,000 in order to, these other things are as important, every bit as important as trees, and so, we'll find the money. We'll work on a grant. We're pretty good at getting grants, so, we can donate $1,000 back to the,
Thank you, Counselor.
If only the rest of the organizations were that understanding, Marilyn, this would make it a lot easier. Because last year, when we tried to cut the outside contributions a little bit, we were told pretty much in front of the entire town that we were stupid and didn't know what we were doing. So I'd like to say thank you for making that offer to cut your own budget.
thank you, Chris. Tree board thanks you.
So we're looking at
We're still $1,500.
$1,500, yeah.
$500 from the three that I named.
What about animal control, county? We don't know what we get with that. And right now, there's no animal control officer in the county, so what are they?
There is, yeah.
Yes, there is the hard one.
Yeah, I'm not sure we should touch that.
Not right now.
No.
Sorry, but
Because what
don't know. I'm
benefit
just
does
asking.
Appalachian Forest Heritage provide to the city?
I can say in the past, they've done work like on windows for City Hall. I don't know if anybody else has any, let me see if I have anything in here.
I mean, that's the organization that Logan Smith presents about, and they're an AmeriCorps facilitating agency, and they bring AmeriCorps workers to town. Those have, as the treasurer says, been used directly on city properties in the past, but there's arguably another role where they bring them to town, and there's quite a few people around town who came as AmeriCorps workers from other areas and who have ended up staying and making strong contributions. One that comes to mind is Dustin Smith at Woodlands Development Group, started in the area as an AmeriCorps, and there are quite a few others, I think. So I guess that would be one of the claims as far as their benefit to the community would be that they kind of bring this type of worker in that may stay and at any rate delivers value while they're here.
Actually, if I can ask a question regarding the chamber, because they have fireworks listed, but I think they've asked our town to do the fireworks this year. Is that correct? Does anybody know that for sure?
I was just getting ready to mention something about the fireworks, but because I had heard that too, but I don't know if that's true. Jessica might know the answer to that.
Did they submit a thing, a request? Did the chamber send in a?
Chief Himes, do you know, have you talked to anybody from Main Street or from our town about fireworks this upcoming year?
The last we discussed it, I do believe our town is heavily involved in the fireworks over the 4th of July.
Is the chamber giving them that money though?
But I'm not sure where they're securing the funds for it. But I know they are trying to facilitate the show itself.
Thank you.
Can we propose taking $1,000 from that group there at Chamber?
Well, if you look at,
Jessica, do you know anything about it?
I'm sorry,
Do you know if our town is contributing to the Chamber's fireworks?
I believe they took them over this past year.
I think it was prior to the ARPA funds, actually.
Yeah, I'd have to look, I don't know that for sure, but, I think that the responsibility, financial responsibility for the fireworks, I believe, has been shifted to our town.
Okay.
So, based on the spreadsheet, if I'm looking back at fiscal year 2020, we, at that time, had given the chamber $4,500. Out of that, $1,500 was for fireworks. So, if they're
Let's revert
looking
back.
for $6,000, they're still gonna get $4,500 for events. I think that's,
I think that,
I don't wanna put them through, because it could be still this situation where
They're just moving the money
they're
over.
just acting as the fiscal, agent for that.
I make
I don't remember exactly.
I thought the street machines were taking over the fireworks.
what did you say,
No, they're
Judy?
just partnering with our town this year.
Pardon?
They're just partnering with our town this year.
They're just parking?
Partnering with them.
Oh, but they're helping with the funding for the fireworks?
I don't believe so, no.
So their request says, $3,000 for basically overall chamber activities, allows our organization to continue working on our mission to promote business opportunities and focus on economic vitality, workforce and housing, educational opportunities, and networking events. Let me list a few of the,
Just general money.
the remainder is for city investments in 2 events, $1,500 for the Christmas parade and $1,500 for the E3 Expo, which is the entrepreneurial expo that Sutton mentioned earlier that they held last year. It was very successful. They're holding it again next week, I believe. So they do not mention the fireworks in the request.
So, can we, they're requesting $3,000? Is that what it was?
$6,000.
6,000.
Yeah,
It's just
3,000 for event,
It's not
for
fireworks.
events, and then 3,000 for
2 events.
Christmas parade and the,
Is the chamber a nonprofit here? Anybody know?
It's a C6.
Okay, so grant funding's gonna be difficult for them.
Can I make one other comment, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Just that, keep in mind that the overall contributions are being reduced by $27,000 because that's gonna come from hotel motel tax because of the projected increase in hotel motel tax. So the $27 is shifting from contributions to hotel motel tax. You do have the savings from last year, significant savings.
Thank you. It's helpful.
So Tracy, with the $27,000 being shifted from hotel motel, are you comfortable where we are with that then?
it's either, that either has to go to the depot or to parks.
But what she's saying is because it has to go to them, that's what we're not giving parks 27,000 out of our portion because it's coming from
No,
hotel
but
motel.
we're giving them 27,000 more in hotel tax,
Okay. Just a different pot of money then.
yes. So, what's your thoughts on doing anything with the chamber?
Well, I suggest that we back it down to the 2020 contribution.
Or do you want to take it down 1,500 for the difference that we're short? So that would be 4,500, that would still,
Isn't that where we need to be?
that's where we would need to be.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with that on the
What
chamber?
was the other 500?
1,000 came from Treebor.
Yeah, tree board. 1,500.
And that we didn't give the health department.
Instead of
Just gave
cutting the
500.
chamber, why don't you take 500 from the airport, the Main Street, and the Development Authority? Then you don't have to cut the chamber out of their funding, because that's gonna leave them short.
I don't think we should take money out of the Development Authority, because I think that's pretty good bang for a buck, $13,500 for all that they do for the city.
They're the one economic development
Yeah, that's pretty well all we've
part
got.
of the entire budget.
What if we did $750 from those two other organizations that you mentioned?
I can't hear you, Rob.
Yeah, what?
Sorry. I said, why don't we do $750 from the Airport Authority and from, what was the other one that you mentioned?
Main Street.
Main Street. Just reduce those by $750.
I'd be fine with that.
I'm good with that.
That's what we have to do, yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, so just want to make sure I have my notes clear. We're increasing the child advocacy by $2,000, the health department by $500, taking $1,000 off of the tree board's budget, $750 off of the airport, and $750 off of Main Street.
Yep. That's what I got.
Okay, go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, one of the questions with Main Street is hopefully they have leftover funds from this fiscal year from not having anybody in that position. So hopefully, you know, I was trying to look at the balance sheets and the financials that they provided, and it seems like that, you know, it should work for them, you know, with the fact that they have not had anybody in that position for several months.
And that's a good point, yes. Okay, so we all comfortable with outside contributions?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Let's see here. All right, we'll go through, all right. So this year's revenues, without the carryover amount, is what I'm going to show you on the first two pages on this, will be $5,287,669. So the county taxes, Jessica actually got a revised copy. The state auditor's office had a change, so that it did increase the current taxes to $1,185,138. Prior year taxes, I have budgeted for $1,000. They generally come in more than that, but because we don't usually get the current taxes, I play around with those numbers. And the current taxes, that number is automatically plugged in by the state auditor, so I cannot change the current taxes. I don't budget anything for the third year taxes, the supplemental taxes, $1,000. The tax loss restoration at $900, interest A at $200, and we've never received interest B. So that's basically the county taxes that we get.
Tracy, remember you were going to zoom in,
Oh.
I think, to 250?
Is that any better?
That's a lot better.
Okay, sorry. So then we go down from that, we're looking at the gas and oil severance tax is budgeted for $25,000. Utility excise tax at $300,000. And that tax has been a little low since COVID started. We don't get near what we did pre-COVID. The 2% city utility tax is $70,000. The B&O taxes is $1.4 million, and the penalties are $10,000. Wine and liquor tax is $92,000, and if you happen to recall, a few years ago, the state kind of redid the map, so we lost some liquor tax that kind of touched our borders to the county. The animal control tax is basically the dog tax that we get from the county of $1,500. Hotel tax, estimating at $195,000, and I can tell you with The state remitting the hotel tax, especially for the Airbnbs, they are capturing more than we can ever have thought, although we don't get a detailed report of who they're collecting from. That has really increased a good bit. And I think as tourism comes around more, we'll see a lot of that, because there's Airbnbs popping up everywhere. The sales tax, I'm staying budgeted again at 1.4 million. The fines, fees, and court cost, and this is for municipal court, 45,000. Court restitution at $100. The police equipment fees that comes from the court at $15,000, and that's part of the police budget. The court administration and court tech and maintenance fees, $4,800 between the two of those. The DUI state at 100, DUI city at 200. And bonds, I'll come back to code enforcement fine, and bonds at 8,000. And just as a reminder, most of the fees or the fines that get paid in court get remitted right back to the state for various categories. Code enforcement fines, $500. Penalties for court, $3,000. This is more of the police portion. Parking violations, $1,500. Parking violations for the street sweeper, $4,000. Parking penalties at $2,000. The regional jail partial reimbursement of $800. Business licenses and the penalties at $29,000. Building permit fees at $25,000. Miscellaneous variances, $200. Franchise fees at $80,000. IRP fees at $60,000. Municipal service fees, and these are fees that we charge for bad checks, basically. The city charges a $20 service fee for those, and that's at $1,000. Parking is for off-street parking, Seneca Mall and by Sweco at $8,500. Rents, royalties, and concessions at $3,000. The Phil Gaynor Center rents is at $35,000. That's up $10,000 from last year, and I will tell you that they're almost at $40,000 in their rentals so far this year. They really, since COVID's over with, they're doing well. Charges for services are for special pickups, so that's $4,000. Now, where you see the city hall charge to fire, parks, that's all part of the indirect cost. Okay, so that's where those get budgeted for. Payment in lieu of taxes is from the Housing Authority of $16,000. Gaming income of $11,000. Interest earned on investments of $25,000, and that's interest earned on that cash account that probably will go higher. Reimbursements of $20,000. Refund and rebates are the P card, and any fuel rebates we get is $7,000. Police accident reports at $1,500. The recycling program at $4,260.
How is that generating money, the recycling program?
We get money from the Solid Waste Authority. Mhm. They're billed quarterly for that.
Pardon?
They're billed quarterly. Video lottery, $25,000. Miscellaneous revenue at $6,000. Phil Gaynor Center donations typically have come anywhere between $4,000 and $10,000, so I'm just doing $4,000. And so that gives us budgeted revenues at $5,287,669. Any questions?
That's just on the vacant structure fees and the inspection fees, or I guess the inspection. fees, those are all zeros. I can't remember, I guess with the vacant properties we've done away.
I don't think, the vacant structure fees that we will have this year, those properties will probably be torn down by next year, so I don't anticipate
Okay.
getting those.
And then the inspection fees is what,
I
It's
would
just
assume
not-
that's,
it's
I
not a
think it's
good
very
idea to
minimal.
put it
I think
in.
it's very minimal.
Okay.
And I think that's what the building inspector and the inspection fees that he does.
It is minimal, however, it is being addressed along with some vacant property fees. And we're going to start enforcing the codes that we have and collecting as necessary.
it was probably hard to project. But then, yeah.
Okay, any questions regarding the revenues?
Those I know I don't want.
All right, now we're going to go department by department. The first department is the mayor. So I worked with the mayor, we reviewed everything. His budget is staying fairly flat. Of course, you have his wages, his FICA expense, telephone expense, his travel expense, training and education. His dues and subscriptions also are included for the State Journal, the West Virginia Municipal League, and the National League of Cities. And the training and education is we're going to annual conferences for that. And supplies and materials, about $600. So the mayor's budget is $30,230. Any question for myself or the mayor?
That one's easy.
Good job.
Okay, and then council, the officials' salary is $64,800. You have FICA expense, group health insurance, retirement, travel, training and education, supplies and materials at $87,087. Any questions regarding council? All right, then you have the treasurers. You have salary and wages, FICA expense, group health insurance, retirement, overtime, travel, and that would be travel that I go to for the GFOA meetings, generally one in the fall and one in the spring. Maintenance of equipment, postage is for the B&Os and the business license mailings. Advertising, training and education, dues and subscriptions, and that's for the GFOA is the dues that I pay there. Any court costs and damages. The contracted services is for Datamax, who we contracted with back in 2018. And so far they have found between businesses for B&Os and business license, they have found $345,130.26. And with the agreement, we pay them 50% the first 2 years. We have paid out $172,565.13, and then we keep the rest. Anything after 2 years is 100% ours. Refunds and reimbursements, supplies and materials is general supplies. A toner for one of our printers is $287. So that is part of it. We've really cut back on the use of our copy paper. It's just general materials that we need in the office, adding machine, printer ribbons, those types of things. The capital outlay, I'm asking $13,500 this year. We have 9 computers in my office, all from 2014, and they have been patched as long as they can be patched. We actually got them prior to the Encode software, and I'm asking to get 9 new ones and to get those replaced. So my budget is $325,700. And the salary and wages includes It would be myself, the deputy treasurer, 1/4 of utility billing, 2 employees there, accounts payable, and Jessica at the window who does cash collections. So any questions regarding my budget? Okay. All right, next is city clerk. You want me to go down through, and then if they have any questions?
I think Jessica.
You want to speak to that, or want me to go down through?
Whatever, or I'll just, I'll point out a couple things that are different. So the salary, wages, everything under personal services is for the clerk, the executive secretary, and the external affairs position. External affairs, of course, is vacant right now, so this projected salary and benefits is based on the lowest possible wage for that. We went into that, you know, there's just an understanding that it's unlikely that won't last long. If you can even get somebody at that lowest wage, chances are that it's going to be higher than that. But just to have some place to start, that's what was included in the budget, was the lowest step in the grade of that position. So I don't know what's the total amount, probably, let's see, in the current budget, it was 226,467, and it's being reduced down to 194,323. Good piece of that is from contracted services, but there's also some of that that's being moved out from supplies and materials, being reduced in the clerk's department and shifted over to what's going to be the new HR and payroll department. I'll get to that in just a minute. Any questions about any of that?
Good job.
I don't know what's next.
The judge is next. Yeah, okay. Okay. So Judge Jones had asked to work with me in creating this budget. So salary and wages is $39,220. This is a reduction. Court has basically gone from what was a 40-hour week to a 25-hour week. And they seem to be doing just fine with that. So we have the FICA expense, the group health insurance, retirement. There won't be any overtime because it's not a full-time, not anything over 40 hours. Travel would be for the judge and clerk training that happens, I believe, in early November. And then the training and education is still part of that as well. Dues and subscriptions. Professional services are city attorney services, or any outside of the city attorney cannot on any issues that are going on in court. Contracted services, remittance fee collected, that $21,000 that will in turn go back to the state. Refunds, reimbursements, P-cards, purchases on that. Supplies and materials in the computer software is the court software in Encode. And that comes to $129,115.
What are the contracted services?
The contracted services, let me think about that. Can I find that out and report back to you on that? It's
Sure.
slipping my mind right offhand.
Tracy, the group health insurance is only $75.
Yes, because the one employee does not take health insurance.
Okay.
So that's basically life insurance and an admin fee.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Is travel for $1,100 for one conference, that seems, or one class, that seems sort of high?
Yes, and that would be hotels as well.
Okay.
It's usually a 2-day training. I believe it's Thursday is the judge and the clerk, and then Friday is just the judge.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding that? Okay. All right, so the city attorney, a couple years ago, we used to budget this under City Hall. It is now its own line item, so we're budgeting $90,000. It usually ranges anywhere from 85 to 100,000.
Is that, how does that work with each department paying certain services?
Anybody in the general fund outside of the police department, those services are charged to an outside of court. So anything that Ms. Roberts does, meetings, attending meetings, responding to emails from me, operations, council, yeah, anything that she does,
And that comes out of the
yes.
so
Mhm.
budget?
Yes.
Oh, we know that, found that out.
All right, then we'll go on down to the city auditor. Our annual audits are about $16,000 now, and then our financial statements usually run $8,000 or $9,000. So that's the $25,000 under the city auditor services. Elkins Main Street is left at $20,000, and that's what we talked about. You'll see these outside contributions in here. Okay, contributions to authorities and entities. So I'll need to change the child advocacy to $5,000. The chamber will stay at 6,000. Appalachian Forest Heritage at 6,000. I'll be changing the tree board to 4,200. Randolph County Arts will stay the same. And the Development Authority will stay the same. Any questions regarding that? And the others will show up further down in the list. This is all how the state auditor has them listed.
If they're on the list but have zero, what does that mean?
We, at one time, had given them money, not necessarily for outside contributions, but like the 2,500, I believe you said, for our account. So they have their own.
So they have their own line item
Line item.
based on that? Okay, thank you.
Yes. All right, then clearance and demolition, once again, we're not budgeting anything for those, or for that, sorry. All right, custodial, we have the salary and wages, FICA expense, group health insurance, retirement, overtime, telephone, maintenance of buildings and grounds, maintenance of equipment, contracted services, supplies and materials, automobile supplies, which would be fuel normally, uniforms, and capital outlay. And that would be, the capital outlay would be the payments for the vehicle in that department. Any questions for myself or?
If there's raises involved with any of these entities, are they just built into the salary and wages?
The step increases?
Yeah.
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct. Mhm. Any questions regarding that? All right, the Regional Development Authority, Region 7, it's right under $8,000 is what we pay them annually. So that's just their annual amount. The building inspector, salary and wages, FICA expense, group health, retirement, telephone, printing, travel, maintenance of equipment, maintenance of auto, advertising, training and education, and I believe you've heard Mr. Eisner talk about the trainings and the certifications that he has, and then also with the new employee, she'll be working toward those as well. Dues and subscriptions, professional services, contracted services, refunds and reimbursements, supplies and materials, automobile supplies, uniforms, and capital outlay equipment. Any questions for the?
Contracted services, is that under a building inspector, what would that be?
I think if Mike, if you want to go ahead and I can.
That'll go toward some of the lawn care maintenance that we'll be doing, excuse me, for the comp house, garden house, things of that nature.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions on the building inspector department? Okay, planning and zoning, we don't have anything budgeted for that. However, we do anticipate needing to move some funds in that. Sutton, Jessica, anybody want to speak on that?
Well, the planning commission has to start relatively soon on the process of updating the comprehensive plan. In the past, we've been able to lean on the free services of the West Virginia University's Land Use Law Clinic. They've kind of run out their initial endowment, if you will. And so they're, as of this year, they're starting to charge for their services. That the need to rely on them is probably a little off in the future. That may not really be until the next budget year. But just to get things started, the Planning Commission will need to start hosting some of the open forums that get public input, things like that. So they were hoping to, in the short term, frankly, maybe before the turn of the fiscal year, come up with $1,000 to begin planning those kinds of events. And it would probably be expenditures along those lines to start with as we get into the next fiscal year. But down the road, the general ballpark from the law clinic to work on a comprehensive plan update was $10,000 to $20,000. there'd be reason to think we would be on the low end of that, but that's possibly an expense for fiscal year '25.
For 2025?
Budget, for 2025 budget.
We know that there's going to be some expenses coming up in 2024, and
Yeah.
we'll find those funds.
Okay.
Okay? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Sutton had discussed that with me.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Elections, there will be no elections next year. Okay, City Hall, we have telephone, utilities, maintenance of buildings and grounds, maintenance of equipment, postage, advertising, dues and subscriptions, professional services, our insurance, general liability, and workers' comp for the general fund employees there. Contracted services, we have, the contracted services, include the phone, email support, data backups, optical internet, the general funds portion of the Encode software, Invoice Cloud, the new online bill pay software that will be coming up, be happening, I believe, the latest is no later than early May. The PEIA administrative fees are in that. And then we have, I'm trying to think how I want to say it. It's called P3 analyst, and they have contracted with us a couple years ago to try to find cost savings in like telephones, utilities. It's a minimal amount that is paid out of there to them, but because we're getting near the end of that contract. I think one thing that they did find a couple years ago is that Mon Power was charging us a incorrect rate, so that they negotiated that and went back to get some of those funds for us. So City Hall has a budget of $451,700.
I had a question. The insurance, is that just for this building or is it for city?
It's for any city-owned buildings. Now, keep in mind, well, and that would be this building, the portion of the street garage, the Darden House, the Cump House, trying to think of some other, any of the storage sites that the general fund department uses. And once again, that's just a rough guess now that we're separating everything out. I don't think it'll be any more than that. I think that probably is a little high, in my opinion. Okay, any questions? All right, other buildings. Okay, this is where the Darden House and the Cump House come into play. So the Darden House utilities, budgeted at $2,500. I think that'll be a little low, but we'll see how that goes when we get a full year under our belt. Cump House utilities, based on information that Heather Biola provided, was around $6,150. Maintenance and repair to the Darden House, we have at $1,000. Contracted services for the Darden House at $9,720. Contracted services, the Cump House at $2,600. Supplies for the Darden House at $4,000. That gives a total budget of $25,970. So this is really the first full year's budget for both of these properties.
And contracted services, what would that be there?
I believe for the Darden House, a lot of that is the optical internet.
Wow.
Mayor, if I may, currently at the Darden House, last year, the city entered into an agreement for $750 a month for 5 years for internet services. I don't want to speak on Ms. Roberts' behalf, but Jerry and I both have looked at it intensely, and we don't see a way to get out of that contract short of just buying ourselves out of the contract. But it's $750 a month for 5 years.
If we sell the house, do we get out of it?
Does that come with it?
Counselor, I didn't look at that option in the fine print. I gladly will.
Yes.
But I gladly will look at that. We have the contract in my office. I'll look at that and see if there's any stipulations, if ownership is transferred, what happens to the contract. But just short of, we're not paying for it, it could create a little bit of a black eye for the city as far as not, Now, I know Sutton, regarding the email you had sent me earlier, they did guarantee, and I'm not an IT guy, so please pardon my ignorance on it, but they guaranteed a certain speed. We're not getting that. So maybe that's something that'll give us some leverage moving forward, trying to get out of it. And I think we'll talk about that tomorrow in the admin officers meeting. But just looking at the contract for the way it's written, I don't see an easy way out of that contract.
Is it something we could pass on to the tenants of the Darden House?
We've already have lease agreements signed by the tenants.
I think the total of the lease agreements probably wouldn't equal the cost of the internet.
Oh, not even close. Not even close, Counselor. So, we do have the lease agreement entered into already. I don't know what type of legal action would be required for us to amend the lease agreement. I don't know if it's feasible or not, but
It's not feasible.
it's right now, it's definitely a burden financially.
It's a mistake, and, that unfortunately, was what happened when there was no oversight. The person who made the contract with Optimum, isn't it?
Yes.
Didn't ask or talk to anybody, just made the agreement himself. So it's just an unfortunate event.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the Department of Other Buildings? Nothing budgeted under transfer of funds. Public Works Department, you have the salary and wages, FICA expense, group health, retirement, overtime, telephone, travel, maintenance of autos and trucks, advertising, training and education, dues and subscriptions, contracted services, supplies and materials, automobile supplies, computer software, and capital outlay equipment. Any questions for, got it, 197.5. Any questions regarding that budget? All right, nothing budgeted for parking meters, nothing in contingencies. The police department. You have, once again, salary and wages, FICA, group health insurance, retirement, the pensions paid, like I mentioned, in the fire budget. Don't anticipate the city having to contribute any to the old pension plan, but we're going to budget $5,000 just to cover us. Overtime, telephone, travel, maintenance of equipment, maintenance of auto and trucks, advertising, training and education, dues and subscriptions, professional services, and that would be for the city attorney, anything that the police department would need her for. Contracted services, supplies and materials, tactical supplies and materials, automobile supplies, that is for fuel, uniforms, computer software for the police portion of it, and the capital outlay equipment is the annual payment for the cruisers that were purchased by Enterprise. Any questions?
Have we noticed a savings with Enterprise, using Enterprise?
I don't think you'll see any savings until you start turning those vehicles over after the first 5 years. Am I correct, Travis, in that, or anybody?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what your question was. I heard savings on something.
We're doing rentals, right, for your cruisers?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say we are already seeing a savings when it comes to vehicle maintenance. I can also tell you that our capital outlay this year is 146,000. In 2019 to 2020, it was 226,000, which was paying for vehicles and maybe some other stuff as well. So it's really not much away from what we were paying before for vehicle costs. As the treasurer said, that'll really be realized at the end of the first 5-year period. When we did this switch and flipped the entire fleet, when we traded in the vehicles that we had toward these, we had $70,000 worth of equity that went toward these new vehicles. At the end of this lease period of 5 years, we will have built $10,000 in equity for every one of the Ford Explorers and $15,600 in equity for the 4 Tahoes. So the next time that we flip the fleet over, we will have more than double the equity that we had this time when we did it. So you'll see that price drop significantly in a few more years when we do this again.
Do you have, what was your budget last year?
My budget last year was,
I have that on
Do you have
a
that,
summary
Tracy?
sheet once we get through all of this, comparing everybody's budget.
Okay, that's great.
$1,409,810.
Any other questions for the police chief? All right, then we go to the police
Tracy,
administration.
If I may, I'd like to ask the chief a question. What can we do about that overtime number? That's 140 grand.
Yeah, overtime is a tough thing to crack for us because it's very hard to estimate. The more calls you have, the more arrests you make, the more overtime you're going to have just handling those cases. Every one of those cases that goes to court, that officer has to be in court. Every time that officer goes to court when he is not working on his shift is a minimum of 2.5 hours of overtime, whether he's there for 5 minutes or not. If he goes to court and nobody from the court notifies him and that case is continued to another day, that's another 2.5 hours that he's going to be paid overtime. If he has grand jury and is scheduled to be there at 9 o'clock and they don't get to him until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's additional hours of overtime that we're paying that officer. It's, again, it's a very, very difficult thing to correct. But again, going back, we've done things already to do that. And the switching to the 12-hour shifts, officers have mandatory overtime built into that. But I can tell you that it's alleviated in 2019 to 2020, our overtime costs were $178,191. So I think we're doing the best we can to mitigate that overtime.
May I add something to that as well? And I think part of this also occurs because he's so short-staffed. You know, if he has guys out on military leave or somebody takes vacation or you have a couple of guys out for sickness, you have other officers who have to pick up the tab. So being short-staffed hurts as well.
We're too short now. So, I mean, it's going to offset it, but the thing about it, we are 2 officers short. And that may cut some of that overtime down once we are fully staffed. But we're never going to be able to cut it out to a point that that's a small number. And again, that's because regardless if we have 13 officers or if we have 15 officers, we've still got to be in court. We're still going to have that overtime that we can't control.
And there are no other scheduling changes we can make?
I think as far as scheduling, we're at the optimum right now as far as eliminating overtime.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the chief? Okay, the police administration, you have wages, FICA, group health insurance, retirement, overtime, and it's the $100 for the bond, and that's for the parking attendant and the dispatcher. I can't think what the dispatcher's true title is right now, but it's for the dispatcher. Anybody have any questions regarding that part of his budget? Okay, then we're down to the Dog Warden Humane Society, the animal control contributions, the 7,000, which we talked about, the outside contribution.
Do we normally have, or maybe did I miss it? Didn't we used to support the Humane Society?
Still do,
What,
$7,000.
is this for the dog warden or for the Humane Society?
We've never, I know Jessica tried.
We'll
we've
say
never
yes to
gotten-
both.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, what?
We'll have to say yes to both because we're not really sure which one it's allocated to. So it's either the Dog Warden or the Humane Society, or they may split it.
Now, last year, we did give
Yeah, we did.
additional money to Randolph County Humane Society, right, Tracy?
it's separate from that.
That was, yeah, that was separate from,
Yes.
Yeah, from the,
Yeah.
this thing either.
That was with the ARPA funds.
Yeah.
They've not come to claim it yet, but yes, they have.
Yeah.
They've been allocated funds there, yes.
Okay,
All right.
all right, so to be,
Oh, sorry.
to be determined who actually gets this money? Is that what you said?
If I understand correctly, it kind of just goes into a little area, is that right, Jessica? Just
Yeah,
for-
what we've been told is that it basically goes into a pot of money that the county uses towards animal control. It's not specified for anything, but that, their budget for animal control pays for the animal control officer, pays for vehicle, equipment, fees to the Humane Society for the shelter and care of animals, so it just goes into a general fund for purposes of animal control.
Okay.
All right. Then you had the flood control budgeted at $50,000. Mike, do you want to, I know we're just really unsure what to put there right now.
Right now with flood control, the recommendation was to keep it where we had it simply because we don't know. It's a lot of unknowns right now. But as we move forward with the progress of getting it listed as active, we're obviously going to spend some money. But we did reach out for some earmarked money as well for the flood control plan. So hopefully that comes through and can offset some of the costs. So, but that's where we're at right now with the flood control. It's just, it's an unknown at this point because it's been inactive.
Okay, then you have the street department. Once again, salary and wages, FICA, group health insurance, retirement, telephone, utilities, maintenance of building and grounds, maintenance of equipment, maintenance of autos and trucks, buildings, equipment, and rents. And that's the portion, their portion of the Baxter Street bond that we have. That bond will be up in 2026. That will be paid for. Training and education, professional services, contracted services, supplies and materials, paving, grinding, patching, grading, automobile supplies as fuel, uniforms, computer software, capital outlay buildings, capital outlay improvements, and capital outlay equipment. Any questions? for-
Salaries, any increase in there?
They would, all employees would be eligible for a compensation review and a step and grade in their classification. Mike, I don't know if you have anything else.
I mean, there's not been any, this question for Mike, I guess, really. Any increases in the wages for these folks?
Yeah, we increased their wages according to the step and grade program that we're under, period.
There's not been any increases in the wages overall?
No, the wage increase is based on the step and grade each year, which I think is 1%. Tracy, is that correct?
Right.
I know that, the supervisor had asked me to go higher than that for this, and I told him we had to stick to the step and grade, and it was 1%, and that's what we did, and that's where that number comes from.
Yeah, we looked at budgeting more, but it just didn't fit right now.
With regards to paving, patching, grinding, and grading, are those outside services, or is that materials? What is the makeup of those for?
It's mostly materials, maybe some outside services, but mostly materials, and we have put increases in there just because of the price of everything going up, so we did have to increase it from last year's allocated amount.
Last year, we had a paving budget, and then there was a request for an additional 50,000. We granted that 50,000 additional. I'm sure asphalt and fuel prices have driven that cost.
Are you anticipating doing as much paving, grinding, patching, grading as was done last year with that amount?
In talk with the street supervisor, we believe we can do as much as we did last year with the increases that we've made on those amounts. We should be able to handle the workload and be able to get it done, yes.
Thank you.
All right. Street lights, we have that utility on its own line item, $104,500 annually.
Streetlights?
Yes. Signs and signals, $27,526. Any questions regarding those two line items? Snow removal, basically that's the salt, I think, 25,000. Central garage, salary and wages, FICA, group health insurance, retirement, overtime, telephone, utilities, maintenance of equipment, maintenance of auto and trucks, central garage's portion of the bond or the rent of $8,500. Insurance and bonds, contracted services, supplies and materials, automobile supplies, uniforms, and capital outlay equipment, for a total of $173,700. Any questions there? Okay, nothing budgeted for sidewalks. The airport authority contributions, I'll be reducing that by $750. Public transit will stay at $14,000. Recycling is at $3,000. The health department contribution will be increased to $4,500. Storm sewer, we have supplies and materials at $10,000. Mike, I don't know if you want to, it's kind of an unknown thing too.
It's kind of unknown, but also it's just based on some history numbers that we had. So we cut that a little bit, and I think we'll be okay there. Use that money elsewhere.
And then the parks contribution at $305,796, and that does include their 50% of the hotel tax. The depot center, their portion will be $97,500, which is an increase of a little over $20,000 from last year. Fuel Gainer Center, $26,000 for utilities, travel, maintenance of building and grounds, postage, advertising, dues and subscriptions, professional services, contracted services. Basically, if they need something repaired or something done in like a bathroom or something, they'll contract that out. Refunds, reimbursements, supplies and materials. Capital outlay is the bond that we have for the renovation that took place a couple years ago. I talked to Chris. We reduced his overall budget by $8,450. The pitched roof is having occasional leaking. He is working on getting an estimate and will look for grant funding, an estimated cost of $100,000, and he's looking at a 5-year plan potentially for that.
Did we just put a roof on that building?
Not the pitch part of it.
Not the pitch part, yeah.
Rather.
And then there's a large water reservoir in the boiler room that would likely be taken out. 2 new water heaters that tie directly into the furnace is estimated at $10,800. So that's kind of what we're looking at for next year. And like I said, the Fuel Gainer Center is, they're knocking it out of the park with
Riddles.
reservations. It's wonderful. Historic Landmarks Commission, excuse me, at $4,000. Civic Promotions, $6,934.
What is that? What are civic promotions?
Civic Promotions is, if you recall, 2017, I believe. You have home rule authority to, the state code allows for municipalities $1 per annum per population to use for civic promotions, and it's outlined in the state code, the framework of what you can use that for. It's fairly loose, but it's basically to promote your community, whether that's you going out or inviting, other dignitaries in, holding events for the community or for other organizations, things like that. So it's adjusted based on, the home rule allows you to have $1 per annum per population. It was, I think the state code was 25 cents, and the home rule authority that we got allowed us to increase that to $1. In the past, we've used that for the city of Elkins guides that we had printed probably 3 or 4 years ago. And then this current fiscal year, a portion of that was used to produce the videos that were created, and we had 2 different videos made. So we've used them for different things. We supported the Development Authority a couple of years ago in the production of a magazine that ran out, thousands and thousands of people. So things like that.
The library contributions are $22,500. Beautification is at $50,000. This includes the flower contract at $31,915 and the 2023 maintenance contract at $6,825. And then that will leave $11,260, kind of as extra, as we usually have some more things that come out of that right now. Human resources, this is what Jessica was talking about, having the payroll clerk, the human resource person, salary and wages, FICA, group health insurance, retirement, overtime, travel, training and education, dues and subscriptions at $111,085. Sure.
Just to say that this includes the new HR position. It also includes the payroll clerk, so that's being moved from the treasurer's department to this new department. Some of the training and education, dues and subscriptions, and supplies and materials were things that were, some of that money is carried over from the clerk's department. As I mentioned, the budget there was cut a little bit, and some of that brought over to this department. Also, just want to mention that this HR position is budgeted for the minimum amount at 40 hours. It is unlikely that you're going to hire somebody at that minimum amount. But we just kept it at that to have a base again to start with. And of course, the payroll clerk position is filled, and so that reflects the current salary and the 1% increase for next year.
What was that amount, Jessica?
I'm sorry.
What is the minimum amount you're talking about?
The minimum amount?
18 something, 1874, something like that.
Yeah, the hourly rate is 1861, so the annual compensation is 38,000.
Never gonna hire
Change. Just in having gone through some of the interviews and negotiations, to hire the person that you really need to fill that position, you're going to be at the higher end of that range. Any other questions?
And there is no one, right?
I'm sorry?
Nobody, we haven't hired anyone, correct?
No, we went through a couple of candidates that were promising, but in part, the salary played into them not accepting it, one in particular, the other had some other reasons. And then given the transition, we kind of let it set for a
So finally, that takes us through all of that. So let me bring this other sheet up here, hopefully. This is off, sorry. All right, so if I can get, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get that out there. All right, so if you look at the working spreadsheet, we have the unassigned revenues of 384,508. That's the carryover that we're going to need to have a balanced budget.
Tracy, can you enlarge that just a little bit, please?
I don't think we have
Let me
Is that
see if
possible?
I can.
The slider down in the bottom right.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Shoot, hold on. Ah, too much. I don't know.
You can just hit the little plus sign to get it bit by bit.
Perfect. Thank
Okay.
you.
So you have the comparison, so the expenditures budgeted for this year compared to last year of what the differences are. So the mayor has an increase of a little over 2,000. City council is a decrease of 43, almost 4,400. The treasurer is $240 less.
Why is council less? Because we didn't have a people.
Um,
Because we didn't.
There was some contracted services, that was the,
Yeah, you had contracted services in there of, ended up being $7,000 for the strategic plan. And I didn't foresee anything coming up in the next fiscal year. We haven't talked about anything, so there's a, that's probably a big part of it.
city clerk's budget was reduced by about 7,800. The municipal judge by a little over 19,000. The city attorney, because we're budgeting it, and the auditor on individual line items, that was taken away from City Hall. Main Street staying the same. The contributions and authorities, I'll need to make some changes on some of those. Custodial is increasing by $15,600. I think they've built more into buildings, maintenance and grounds, is that correct?
Yeah, we built more money into that. Also, you had the step increases and the truck payment that is coming out of that as well. And the step increases, there was last year, there was a large pay increase for one of the employees. So that's why that number went as high as it did.
And then you have the development authorities being reduced by $158. Building inspection increase, basically due to the new hire.
That is correct, the new employee.
Planning and zoning, once again, we're not budgeting anything, but we know that there's going to be needed funds there. Elections, because there's no election, so it's 14,300 less than the current year. City Hall was reduced by 21,300. Other buildings, which is Darden and the Cump House, is increasing by 25,970 because we never budgeted that separately before. Public Works increased by $2,450. Parking reduced by $500. Police increased by $52,082. Police admin by $1,638. We have no changes with the dog warden, flood control. Streets is reduced $92,567. Street lights, because they have their own separate budget now, it's an increase of $104,500. Signs and signals, an increase of $2,526. No change for snow removal or central garage. Sidewalks, we're not budgeting anything for sidewalks. Airport, public transit staying the same, recycling center, or recycling, yes, is being reduced by 4,000. The local health department will change, storm sewer, doing $10,000. Parks and Rec staying the same. The Visitors Bureau, which is the depot, is increasing a little over 17,000. Fuel Gainer Center reduced by 8450. No change with Landmarks Commission, $134 more on civic promotions. No change on the library. Beautification is increasing $9,585. And the Human Resources, since this is a new department, is in there at $111,085. And I will also have that updated for Thursday's meeting. Any questions there?
I just had a philosophical question about with the hotel motel and the 50%. Let's say that, after the Tiger Hotel opens, or whatever they're going to call it, there's a huge increase that would go to the local CVB.
Correct.
And parks, but it's split, right? It has
Yes.
to be split 50%, or the CVP has to get 50%, and the other, there's. a
Right, by
little-
state code, you're allowed to do certain things with the other 50%.
Right.
I don't have that in front of me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think arts, maybe some of it, parks.
Right. But, I mean, let's say that their budget would increase by 30%, or $30,000, let's say we have. So they would get all that
Yes.
money. Wow.
Yeah, and kind of works the opposite way too. If for
Yeah.
some reason we hit really a down spot, they may not get all of their contribution. If we'd hit a huge recession and nobody's doing anything, yeah. The amount that we're budgeting for in the letter, I believe it states it's not guaranteed.
Right.
And they understand how that works. Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to show you all is the administrative officers. Oh, for heaven's sakes. So sorry. Have put together a capital program for the next 5 years. So, as you may know, the HVAC project is estimated at $1.2 million. They're looking at USDA community low interest loans, unknown at this time, but that would be an additional payment potentially at some point. Mike, you have any information on that?
Yes, and working with downstream strategies, they feel that the HVAC system would be a very, very good candidate for a low-interest loan, and that they're prepared to help us with the hours and manpower that it takes to work on this. We're waiting to get an exact cost on the project. Obviously, we'll need that, but once we get the exact cost, we're going to move forward with that to see exactly what options are out there for us. But it is a very appealing proposal for a low-interest loan for that project.
Isn't that what we use for the water plant, USDA loan?
Part of it. USDA and the IJDC, I believe. And then you have the Davis Avenue Bridge. Estimates look like they're $4 to $7 million. Financing, is that IIJA funds that are administered by the DOT. Operating and maintenance costs, little to none should be anticipated. And once again, the time frame to be determined by the DOT. And do you know, do we have any idea if the general fund will be responsible for any of that, or are we still kind of in the unknown stages of?
I think it's probably unknown. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Jessica, but I mean, I think at this point it's unknown. They're going to try to work with us so that we have minimal costs, but Department of Highways has stepped up. Is it Perry Kelly? Is that his name? I think. Yeah, Perry Keller is actually taking point on this. They're doing all the heavy lifting for us, to be honest with you. So we're just waiting to hear back from them at this point.
Yeah, if you remember, council passed a resolution a couple of months ago to enter into the program being offered by the DOT. As they're funding that through the Infrastructure Jobs Act. They have a bunch of money that come down for bridges specifically, and a portion of that for bridges, off-system bridges like the Davis Avenue bridge that municipalities own. Because ours is rated 4, that bumps us higher on the list to receive funding. It could be, what we've been told and understand is that they would pay for anywhere from 80 to potentially 100% of the design and construction, but we're still haven't heard anything more beyond that.
All right, thank you. Flood control is, as it's been mentioned, it's kind of an unknown at this point in time, as far as the cost. The landfill is another unknown as well, as there's more information being worked on with that. Riverfront development, let's see, the cost at $3.3 million. And they're looking at the TIF and USDA community facilities. Sure, you sure may.
I think it was before we completed this, we also submitted an application for congressionally directed spending for the riverfronts as well.
Great. And so that time period's about 3 years. And then estimates, it says, for potential maintenance and operation may include funding an additional parks employee and some equipment. Sanitation garage, Mike, do you have any update on the sanitation garage for the sanitation fund?
I don't have one currently. We did go down and mark the property, and we should be getting a cost estimate really soon and be able to move forward relatively quickly with that project.
And the streetscapes improvements is estimated at $1.8 million. Looking again at TIF or the USDA Community Facilities Funds. Let me come back to that one. I don't know why I can't. You sure may, go right ahead.
We also applied for congressionally directed spending for the streetscape as well. And if I recall, when that spreadsheet was completed, that was kind of, those figures were based on the Main Street vision statement and the projections at that point, which were a little bit dated. Was able to get some preliminary information from GAI. You all will have a full presentation coming up soon in order to be able to submit that request in a timely manner. And the projections were a little bit higher than that. I think they were over 2 million. I don't remember off the top of my head. We did submit a request for that, so hopefully we'll get all those funds.
Is there any, on the note, it has assuming ownership. Is there something that should be happening now to alleviate that issue? Because it looks like if we don't have ownership, then we can only do street lamps and furnishing.
That has always been a question on the table that will have to be decided at some point, whether or not we want to pursue ownership. I think that would be lengthy and very complicated, and I would not recommend that route. I think you can, this would be something that council will have to discuss moving forward, but it's just, it'll be up to you all how you want to enforce whatever measures that you take in streetscape improvement to certain standards, or if you're going to impose rules on property owners, things like that.
Jessica, you're
So
referring to
the-
sidewalk ownership?
I'm sorry?
Are you referring to sidewalk ownership?
Yes,
So your understanding is the city does not own the sidewalks,
correct.
which is the email we had, the discussion
We'll
we
have
had.
to figure that out.
Yeah.
Because, and it seems like with.
This is why I've been confused, why I brought it up in the email that we
Yeah.
were discussing, because it's a conflict of, nobody knows exactly who owns what.
Yeah. It seems like, I remember, we did improve sidewalks on Davis Avenue. Oh, we did improve sidewalks on Davis Avenue a bunch, it's been a while. And, you know, I just have always wondered what, you know, we went ahead and did that, and we had a grant to do that. That was under Bob Pingley. So we'll have to see how we were able to do that. We'll figure it out.
Let's save that rabbit hole for another
Yes,
time.
exactly.
Please.
The street sweeper, I'll let Mike speak to that.
Street supervisor had approached me regarding the need for a new street sweeper. So one of the things that was listed in the capital outlay for the street department budget included the payment for the new street sweeper. I did some costs and what we've paid in the old street sweeper to repair it and maintain it. I really think it would be a smart move to go ahead and purchase a new one. You know, if we move quickly on it, like the chief said, how much money did you save by buying your truck when you did?
$263,000.
Exactly. So therefore, we went ahead and budgeted that amount into the capital outlay so we could get that taken care of. So that,
Street sweepers are not, they're an expensive piece of equipment.
yeah, I think what we can do as well, for a year or two, we'll keep our old one. But then at some point, we could probably sell that and have that money come back to us from the old one we have now. So that's why that expense is there, but it's built into the capital outlay on the budget.
I assume Enterprise doesn't rent those.
If they,
Oh,
if
we
they do
can
that
only-
and,
I
lift truck,
I actually asked that question. They don't.
And then the last thing on the item is the trail construction, cost of $3 million. Jessica, I don't know a lot of that. I don't know if you want to fill in
We're
that.
in the planning process right now through the $50,000 that was received at last week's commission. And so we don't have final numbers on what the construction of the trail will cost. Once we do, then east, but it's been taking the lead, the Elkins area shared trails group, will continue to pursue that. At this point, I'm not sure what the long-term city involvement would be, to be honest. The trails that they're planning right now are not on city-owned property. Most of them are within the municipality, so that's yet to be determined.
So basically, that's what's, right now, looking out 5 years. You can see there's several things for the general fund. So we'll hope to get as much free money as we can, because then if not, we'll be struggling to budget for that. But, you know, hopefully we'll get a new revenue stream at some point coming in, and that's where we are. Anybody have any questions?
no.
This is right for that.
Yeah,
All right, so I'll get the changes made, and then the budget will come up on Thursday's agenda for request for approval with those changes requested. Okay? Thank you, sorry it took so long.
No, thank you so much, Tracy. I know it takes a long time, but I think it's transparency at its best, to be honest with you. I mean, you're showing the public what revenue we have and what expenditures we have. So thank you for your time in putting this together. Jessica, thank you for coming back with us tonight. I know you've missed us already. I want to thank council for their questions tonight. You're doing your due diligence, I feel, for the citizens when you're talking about taxpayer dollars. So thank you for that. This is not easy, but I appreciate your patience. And with that,